Hello, folks. How are you today? March 14th, 2013. It's been a sad week. The passing of the battling barrister, Doug Christie, out west, with his family around him as he passed away. The hero of patriots worldwide. Doug Christie fought for freedom of speech wherever he went. A family man, a battling barrister. He had the respect of his enemies. And from what I've been able to gather on the internet, the enemies have been respectful with his passing away. I tip my hat to them over that. That's fair enough. Doug Christie, the battling barrister for freedom of speech. You'll notice I keep looking at the sidelines of the YouTube video here. It's only my second attempt on my own, and so I just have to watch little odds and ends. So, the leading light for freedom of speech, Doug Christie, passed away. Rest in peace, God bless his soul. Passed away March the 11th, 3 days ago. Thank you for tuning in to the BritishPeoplesLeague.com YouTube bi-weekly videos. These videos are our main focal point, the British People's League, for getting our message across to those of British stock around the globe and our European cousins. Let's not forget our European cousins. Well, as Ricky Nelson's corny old song used to say, you can't please everyone, you got to please yourself. I'm of British stock, all four grandparents born within 200 miles of each other in the British Isles. 3 in Scotland, 1 on the English border. Father born in Scotland. So you can understand the yearning for the good old days when British customs were recognized around the globe. And yes, our customs made us happy. Those of you, bloodthirsty, come on, all through history. Conquered territories, that's what it's all about. Not nice, it's not nice, but that's the way it is, you know. That's the way it is. 2 weeks ago, the video stressed. We're on a roll. British Canadians are fighting back, along with our European cousins. We're not taking the crap any longer. Because communist dictatorship has been enthralled over our nation. Communist dictatorship has been enthralled over our nation. I'm not calling Stephen Harper a dictator. I'm not calling the Supreme Court judges dictators. It's the atmosphere, the mode of the nation. When freedom of speech goes down the tube, YouTube has to bring it back up. There's a play on words. When freedom of speech goes down the tube, YouTube has to bring it back up. Corny as hell, but that's the way it is. This is our only outlet. We had a rally lined up in the spring of 2011, 200 acres of private land. As the largest radio station in CFRB back then in 2011 stated, politicians and police should stay out of it. John Beattie is being allowed a rally on private property to remember Sir John A. Macdonald. Let them do so. Did they? No. The police broke the Police Act and interfered with the property owner, intimidated him to the point that he had to withdraw his invitation of the 200 acres. So if that's not a denial of free speech, what is? Or go back with yours truly, decades ago. A simple sign, free speech or death. A simple sign decades ago, free speech or death. Carried through a downtown well-known park with a beautiful floral gardens and huge greenhouse effect, etc. Allen Gardens. Statue of Robbie Burns right in the park. So there's the spirit with us, the spirit of Robbie Burns. Across the street at 313 Sherburne Street, a British church organization. The memories of my grandfather walking me through that park on the way to the old St. Lawrence Market, way back. So that's where I chose to walk with my sign, free speech or death. It wasn't a death wish, it was just a dramatic point. Nearly got the death situation. Lunatic came charging through the crowd, and I'd say 75% of the crowd were with us for freedom of speech. But one lunatic, twirling his binoculars like a lasso, twirling them on a large length of strap on those binoculars. So imagine binoculars spinning and spinning, and whammo, whammo, still got the lump here. If that had hit the temple, I would have been dead. Picture in the Globe and Mail the next day, showing me lying unconscious with two policemen leaned over trying to wake me up. There was no paraphernalia, no uniform, nothing stupid, just a nice sports jacket and slacks. A simple sign held high, free speech or death. I'm giving you a few outlines of what the state has done to squash freedom of speech in Canada. The denial of a 200-acre rally for Sir John A. Macdonald, 2011. Now way back to this free speech or death sign. So, of course, the fellow was charged by the police right there on the spot, named Eugene Lawrence, taken to court. It was a trial. Found guilty. Well, what choice did they have? It was in front of hundreds of people. Do you know what his fine was? For potentially killing someone? $25 fine. $25 fine. For assaulting someone with a weapon in a public park. I hadn't opened my mouth. Not a word. So there was no incitement, just a simple sign. Free speech or death. So we can go back that far. And many other people who have been charged and incarcerated for practicing freedom of speech. Now here's a tricky point. And I have to look away almost. I hate to look you in the eye and say I agree with the Supreme Court judgment in one little wee aspect. And they did leave the opening in the recent decision, very recently, around the beginning of March. They decided against a minister who was protesting against homosexuality and the promotion of homosexuality in his sincere held beliefs. His language was really strong and rough. Now, I know we all feel that way, okay? But there is a way to express words in the English language. We don't have to use gutter terms. We don't have to use the rawest terms there are, but yes, the working people like to do that, so you got me in a hypocritical corner there. But there are still ways that we're surviving. Yes, they denied the park. Yes, they denied the 200 acres. And yes, they've denied the minister his pamphlets, etc. But we can still skirt around it a bit, and they did leave an opening, you know, that if it's... The meaning is if it's casual reference, if it's not just raw incitement. Well, we'd like to use raw incitement, I'm sure, but there are ways around it, such as the YouTube here today. I mean, Doug Christie stood up for freedom of speech, but he didn't use raw gutter language. We have to be strong, smart. If we're going to defeat a communist enemy, and that is the atmosphere of this nation. I'm not saying the Prime Minister is a communist, or members of Parliament are communists, or members of the Supreme Court are communists, but what I'm saying, the communist atmosphere is here. When you lose freedom of speech, what was Lech Wałęsa, the Polish worker, all about? In the worker dockyards way back when he stirred up the people in Poland to initiate a fight against communism. Or Alexander Solzhenitsyn with his brilliant books, The Gulag Archipelago. I remember seeing the movie in the early 70s. These were brave men who stood up against communism and dictatorship. What's the first sign of a communist dictatorship? Curtailing freedom of speech. That is the first sign of a communist dictatorship. We do not have full freedom of speech in Canada. I've given guidelines how we can sort of skirt around and still get our opinion across. But freedom of speech has been curtailed. And again, the hate law itself in the criminal code makes it clear you can't promote genocide against the peoples and preach it openly. So that helps prevent people preaching openly the destruction of the white race, even though we're being outbred and unswamped by multiculturalism. Section 13 of the Ontario Human Wrongs Commission is sitting in the Senate waiting to get bounced, but it could be a sneaky ploy on the Conservatives' part to make it look to the free speech fighters that we're going to give you your wish, we're going to kick Section 13 off the books, and then by the same token dragging it in the Senate where it may die. So the top crusader to get the bill squashed, Mark Lemire, M-A-R-C, first name Mark Lemire, L-E-M-I-R-E. Check him up on Google, folks. I don't want the bi-weekly videos to turn into a linkage show as such, but he deserves checking out. He's the main crusader against Section 13 with the help of his Eastern Ontario lady lawyer, another lawyer crusader. So Mark Lemire has picked up the torch. We've lost Doug Christie, but we have Mark Lemire. Oh, we still have Doug Christie to rally around his memory. All the cases he fought for regarding freedom of speech. And his main thrust, his main words, Doug Christie, the battling barrister's main words, passed away March 11th, 3 days ago. Quote Doug Christie, freedom of speech is the one thing you have to give your worst enemy if you want to keep it for yourself. Freedom of speech is the one thing you have to give your enemy if you want to keep it for yourself. Wise, profound words. Hysterical because they say we're under communist dictatorship. If we don't have freedom of speech, what the hell are we living under? It's a rallying cry. Get that section off the books, Mr. Harper. You appointed the majority of the senators now. The freedom of speech crusade. Mark Lemire is leading that crusade right now. Many details on his fight on his webpage. So the fight goes on in memory of Mr. Christie. Actually, there's a neat video on Candor, our associates in Motherland, the United Kingdom. That's candor.org.uk. I'd better double check that, folks. Candor, C-A-N-D-O-U-R, candor.org.uk. And there's a video of Doug Christie addressing the Candor friends in the Motherland a few years back. It's ironic that they have that video still sitting up there. Truly ironic. Just as it's ironic, I had chosen freedom of speech as the topic for this bi-weekly video. I had chosen that topic about a week ago, and then the most unfortunate passing of Mr. Douglas Christie. Hero. His enemies respected him too. And I must say there's a few blogs out there we call the enemies of freedom of speech. They've been respectful in his passing, and I commend them for that. I commend them for that. We may have different ideological paths, but at least the enemy still has some dignity, and that's great. I take my hat off for that. But the atmosphere in this nation whereby our people hide in the soccer fields, hide in the hockey rinks, hide in the Legion halls, hide in the curling clubs. Oh, Beattie, you're exaggerating. They go there for fun. Yes, go there for fun, but it's also an escape from the reality of what our nation has turned into, a dictatorship. But it's not the open dictatorship of Stalinism, of the communist empire. It's an unwritten dictatorship. You only say so much. Or you could whisper it at the Legion Hall table on Friday night after 3 beer. And if you slime balls up there in Ottawa don't get the message, this freedom of speech issue is coast to coast. Multiculturalism is the enemy. The Prime Minister of Britain has stated multiculturalism does not work. Pretty obvious it doesn't work. And the denial of freedom of speech, don't you realize the frustration that builds in people? You slime balls up in Ottawa, don't you realize the frustration? It's everywhere. And you think we don't have records? We can't know who was on the watch in Ottawa supposed to be for the people? There's a festering out there, you meatheads up in Ottawa. Smarten up. You live in another world in your ivory tower liberalism. Penthouse liberals. It's not just me screaming hysteria. It's across the country in every Legion Hall on a Friday night. People are fed up with multiculturalism. Our British-Canadian way of life, along with our European cousins, our whole way of life just being smothered, squashed. Okay, our next video will be the last week of March. Do remember Doug Christie. I never had the opportunity to meet the man, just followed his career with great admiration. So have a happy St. Patrick's Day this Sunday, the 17th, and we'll be at you the last week of March. Thanks for tuning in. God bless each and every one of you.